When investigators were ready to confront Michael, he had already vanished. His condo was orderly, bills paid, and belongings removed, evidence of planning, not panic. Michael's disappearance was executed with the same meticulous attention to detail that had characterized his fraud scheme. The preparation for his escape had begun months before the final weekend theft, with systematic liquidation of all assets that could be traced to his legitimate identity. His luxury condominium in Henderson had been sold in May 2017, with the transaction structured through a shell company to obscure the beneficial owner of the proceeds. Michael had explained the sale to concerned neighbors as a downsizing move, claiming he was relocating to a smaller apartment closer to the Strip for convenience. In reality, the $1.8 million sale provided portable wealth that could fund extended international travel. Michael's retirement accounts, accumulated over 15 years of casino employment, were liquidated in March 2017 under the pretext of making alternative investments that would provide higher returns. The early withdrawal penalties were substantial, but Michael understood that accessible cash was more valuable than long-term financial planning when preparing to flee American jurisdiction permanently. Even personal possessions were systematically converted to liquid assets. Michael's collection of expensive watches, purchased over years of successful VIP hosting, were sold through high-end consignment shops in Beverly Hills and Manhattan. His luxury vehicle was disposed of through a private sale that left no paper trail connecting him to the transaction. The preparation extended to establishing multiple escape routes and backup identities that could support various contingencies. Through Maria Santos's document network, Michael had acquired 3 complete identity packages with American documentation, plus additional foreign identity documents that could facilitate international travel and residence. The American false identities were designed to allow Michael to disappear within domestic borders if international escape proved impossible. These included social security numbers, credit histories, employment records, and residential documentation for identities based in different regions of the country. Each identity had been carefully aged through small transactions and activities that established authentic-looking background activity. The foreign documentation was more complex, involving cooperation with document specialists in several countries who could provide authentic-appearing passports, visas, and residency papers. These documents were expensive. Michael paid over $200,000 for foreign identity packages from specialists in Panama, Singapore, and Eastern European countries with limited cooperation with American law enforcement. Michael's research into escape destinations was comprehensive and professional. He studied extradition treaties, banking regulations, residency requirements, and cultural factors that would affect his ability to live comfortably in various countries. His analysis identified several jurisdictions that offered the combination of financial privacy, limited law enforcement cooperation, and quality of life that would support permanent relocation. Panama emerged as his primary destination due to its established financial secrecy laws, significant American expatriate population that would provide cover, and banking infrastructure that could facilitate management of his stolen wealth. Michael had made preliminary trips to Panama City in early 2017, ostensibly for vacation, but actually to establish banking relationships and identify suitable residential arrangements. Singapore was selected as a secondary option because of its status as an international financial center, with sophisticated banking services and a large population of Western business professionals. The city-state's emphasis on financial privacy and its complex relationship with American law enforcement made it attractive for someone seeking to avoid detection while maintaining access to high-quality financial services. Eastern European countries, particularly those with recent histories of political instability, offered third-tier options that combine low cost of living with minimal governmental capacity for responding to American extradition requests. Michael had researched property ownership opportunities and residency requirements in several countries that could provide sanctuary if his preferred destinations proved unsuitable. The actual escape was triggered by subtle indicators that casino security was beginning to investigate marker irregularities. Michael had established monitoring systems that would alert him to unusual attention from casino accounting or security departments. When these systems indicated increased scrutiny of his customer accounts, Michael activated his escape plan immediately rather than attempting to complete additional theft operations. His departure from Las Vegas was staged to appear like routine personal travel rather than criminal flight. Michael took a scheduled vacation from his casino employment explaining that he needed time to handle personal matters related to his recent divorce. This provided cover for several days of absence before his disappearance would trigger investigation. The actual departure was sophisticated and multi-layered. Michael drove to Los Angeles using his legitimate identity, creating a paper trail that suggested he was visiting the city for personal reasons. His rental car was returned to LAX airport with receipts that implied he had departed on an international flight using his real passport. However, Michael had actually taken ground transportation to San Diego, where he crossed the Mexican border using one of his false American identities. The border crossing was designed to appear routine, with documentation showing a short recreational trip to Tijuana. Once in Mexico, Michael activated the more sophisticated elements of his escape plan. Mexican contacts, established through his legitimate work arranging high-roller travel, provided transportation and accommodation, while Michael arranged his next phase of movement. Private aircraft charter services, paid for with cash and arranged through intermediaries, transported Michael to Panama without creating immigration records that could be easily traced by American investigators. The private flight routing was deliberately complex, with fuel stops in several countries that created confusion about Michael's ultimate destination. Even the aircraft operators were provided with false information about passenger identity and travel purposes, making it difficult for investigators to reconstruct the actual route, even if they discovered evidence of the flights. By the time casino investigators realized that Michael Torres had disappeared, he had already been outside American jurisdiction for over 48 hours and was beginning the process of establishing permanent residence under one of his carefully prepared false identities. The FBI quickly launched a global search. Panama and Central America were early focuses, with their money laundering hubs, but immigration and financial checks turned up nothing. The FBI's investigation into Michael Torres expanded to include multiple federal agencies and international cooperation agreements within hours of discovering his disappearance. The scale of the theft and the sophistication of the money laundering operation triggered enhanced investigative resources typically reserved for major organized crime or terrorism cases. The initial focus was domestic, with investigators examining all available evidence about Michael's activities in the months before his disappearance. Financial records were subpoenaed from banks, credit card companies, and investment firms to trace any unusual transactions that might indicate preparation for flight. Surveillance footage from airports, border crossings, and transportation hubs was reviewed to identify Michael's departure route. The investigation quickly identified Michael's systematic asset liquidation and the sale of his condominium, providing clear evidence that his disappearance was planned rather than impulsive. This discovery shifted the investigation's focus to international pursuit, with immediate requests for cooperation from law enforcement agencies in countries that Michael might reasonably reach from Las Vegas. Panama became an early focus due to its proximity, established financial infrastructure, and the presence of money transfer services that Michael had used for laundering casino funds. FBI agents were deployed to Panama City within 72 hours of Michael's disappearance, working with local authorities to examine immigration records, banking transactions, and surveillance footage from airports and hotels. The investigation in Panama was hampered by the country's banking secrecy laws and limited cooperation with American law enforcement requests. While Panamanian authorities provided basic assistance with immigration record checks, they were restricted by domestic privacy laws from providing detailed financial information about foreign nationals without extensive legal procedures that could take months to complete. Immigration records showed no evidence of Michael Torres entering Panama under his legitimate identity, but investigators understood that he likely possessed false documentation that would allow entry under assumed names. The challenge was identifying which of hundreds of American citizens entering Panama during the relevant time period might actually be Michael using forged credentials. European investigation proved equally complex, focusing initially on countries with large American expatriate populations where Michael might blend into existing communities. Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and various tax haven jurisdictions were examined due to their financial infrastructure and banking secrecy traditions. Swiss authorities provided limited cooperation due to their strict banking privacy laws, but confirmed that no accounts had been opened under Michael Torres's legitimate identity during the relevant time period. However, the complexity of Swiss banking regulations made it impossible to determine whether Michael had accessed existing accounts or establish new relationships using false identities. British investigation focused on London's financial district and established networks of international money laundering that Michael might have accessed through his casino contacts. The Metropolitan Police examined immigration records and financial surveillance data, but found no evidence of Michael's presence using any known identity documents. Asian investigations centered on Macau and Singapore, both major international gambling centers where Michael's casino industry expertise might allow him to establish new employment under a false identity. These jurisdictions offered the combination of financial sophistication and limited law enforcement cooperation that would appeal to someone seeking to disappear with substantial stolen funds. Macau's investigation was particularly intensive due to its role as a global money laundering center for criminal organizations throughout Asia. Chinese authorities provided extensive cooperation, examining gambling industry employment records, banking transactions, and surveillance footage from casinos and hotels. However, no evidence of Michael's presence was discovered despite comprehensive investigation. Singapore's investigation was complicated by the city-state's role as a major international financial center, with thousands of Western business professionals whose presence would provide perfect cover for someone seeking to blend into the expatriate. A mayor community, immigration records were examined, but the volume of legitimate American business travelers made it impossible to identify Michael if he was using sophisticated false documentation. The investigation's scope expanded to include countries that American fugitives had historically used as sanctuaries, including various Latin American nations with limited extradition agreements. Brazil, Argentina, and other countries with significant American expatriate populations were examined, but no evidence of Michael's presence was discovered. Perhaps most frustratingly for investigators, the domestic investigation continued to reveal evidence that Michael might never have left the United States. The sophistication of his identity documents and the thoroughness of his escape planning suggested that he might have simply vanished into American society under one of his carefully prepared false identities. This possibility was particularly troubling because it suggested that Michael Torres could be living anonymously anywhere in the United States while investigators searched internationally. The false identity documents that Maria Santos had provided were sophisticated enough to support employment, housing, and financial services under assumed names that had no connection to Michael's legitimate identity. The investigation team examined employment records, rental applications, and financial transactions throughout the American Southwest, looking for patterns that might indicate Michael's presence under an assumed identity. However, the volume of data and the quality of his false documentation made this approach extremely resource-intensive, with little prospect of success. After 6 months of intensive international investigation, FBI agents had examined leads in over 20 countries without discovering any evidence of Michael's location or activities. The stolen $22 million had similarly vanished, with no traces appearing in any monitored financial systems, despite comprehensive surveillance of international banking networks. The investigation's complexity was compounded by the sophisticated money laundering infrastructure that Michael had established during his criminal planning. The stolen funds had been routed through multiple shell companies in different jurisdictions, with each transfer designed to obscure the beneficial ownership and ultimate destination of the money. Forensic accountants working with the FBI traced the initial wire transfers from the Bellagio to accounts in Panama, Singapore, and the Cayman Islands. However, these accounts had been systematically emptied within hours of receiving the stolen funds, with the money transferred to additional accounts in jurisdictions, including Switzerland, Luxembourg, and various Caribbean banking centers. Each subsequent transfer involved conversion to different currencies and routing through correspondent banking relationships that made tracing increasingly difficult. The money had been split into smaller amounts and moved through dozens of accounts, creating a complex web of transactions that would require years of legal procedures to unravel completely. The shell companies that owned these accounts were structured through multiple layers of nominee directors and shareholders, making it virtually impossible to identify the actual beneficial owner without extensive legal proceedings in each relevant jurisdiction. Many of these jurisdictions had banking secrecy laws that prohibited disclosure of account information without specific legal procedures that could take months or years to complete. The investigation revealed that Michael had spent over 2 years establishing this money laundering infrastructure, working with specialists in multiple countries to create a system specifically designed to make recovery of stolen funds virtually impossible. The sophistication exceeded what most professional criminals achieved, demonstrating the advantages that Michael had gained through his legitimate work in the international casino industry. Interpol issued a red notice for Michael Torres within weeks of his disappearance, creating a global alert that would notify law enforcement agencies worldwide if he attempted to cross international borders using any known identity documents. However, the notice was limited to his legitimate identity and known aliases, making it ineffective if Michael was using sophisticated false documentation. The red notice also included financial alerts that would trigger notification if Michael attempted to access banking services under his real name. But investigators understood that someone with Michael's resources and preparation would never make the mistake of using traceable identity documents for financial transactions. The casino industry implemented immediate reforms following Michael's theft, recognizing that the vulnerabilities he had exploited existed throughout Las Vegas and other gaming centers worldwide. The American Gaming Association issued comprehensive guidelines for enhanced VIP customer verification, requiring multiple layers of identity confirmation before extending significant credit lines. Background checks for casino hosts were intensified, with financial surveillance designed to detect lifestyle changes that might indicate involvement in criminal activities. Employee access to customer credit systems was restricted, requiring supervisory approval for transactions exceeding specified thresholds. The marker system itself was restructured to eliminate the gaps between preliminary approval and final verification that Michael had exploited. New procedures required real-time confirmation of customer banking relationships before credit could be extended, even for established customers with previous positive histories. These reforms eliminated the specific vulnerabilities that Michael had exploited, but industry experts acknowledged that determined criminals with sufficient sophistication could likely identify new weaknesses in any system designed to balance security with customer service. The fundamental challenge of providing convenient service to wealthy customers while preventing fraud remained unsolved. The Bellagio faced regulatory scrutiny from the Nevada Gaming Commission, which launched its own investigation into the casino's internal controls and oversight procedures. While the investigation ultimately concluded that the casino had followed established industry practices, the regulatory attention damaged the Bellagio's reputation among high-roller customers, who valued discretion above all else. Several of Michael's former clients relocated their gambling activities to other casinos, representing millions in lost annual revenue that exceeded even the direct theft amount. The destruction of trust between casinos and their VIP customers proved to be a lasting impact that extended far beyond the immediate financial loss. The investigation also revealed the extent to which Michael had betrayed personal relationships with customers who had trusted him as a friend rather than simply a service provider. Wealthy patrons who had confided in Michael about business deals, family problems, and personal challenges discovered that their trust had been exploited by someone who viewed them as nothing more than sources of criminal opportunity. Law enforcement agencies worldwide continued to receive occasional reports of Michael Torres sightings, but none proved credible upon investigation. The reports came from locations as diverse as Monaco, Dubai, and various Caribbean islands, suggesting either widespread confusion about Michael's appearance or deliberate misinformation designed to misdirect the investigation. The most credible sightings came from Panama and Singapore, consistent with the investigation's focus on these jurisdictions as Michael's most likely destinations. However, detailed investigation of each report failed to produce any physical evidence or confirming witness testimony that would substantiate Michael's presence. Private investigators hired by the Bellagio's insurance companies continued their own search efforts, focusing on financial surveillance and human intelligence gathering in countries where Michael might have established residence. These investigations were less constrained by legal procedures than government law enforcement, but proved equally unsuccessful in locating Michael or recovering the stolen funds. The insurance companies ultimately paid claims totaling over $30 million to cover the direct theft, investigative costs, and business interruption losses that resulted from the fraud. However, the policies included provisions for continued recovery efforts, ensuring that private investigation would continue indefinitely until Michael was located or the stolen funds were recovered. Financial intelligence units in multiple countries established permanent monitoring systems designed to detect any future activity by Michael Torres or associated with the stolen funds. These systems would automatically flag any transactions, account openings, or financial activities that match patterns associated with Michael's known methods or the laundered money. The monitoring systems represented a significant technological investment by international law enforcement, utilizing advanced algorithms and artificial intelligence to identify potential matches among billions of daily financial transactions. However, the systems were limited by their reliance on known patterns and identities, making them ineffective against someone who had successfully assumed a completely new identity. The Michael Torres case became a landmark study in casino security and financial crime investigation, taught at law enforcement academies and security training programs worldwide. The case demonstrated how sophisticated internal fraud could exploit trust relationships and procedural gaps that external security measures could not address. Academic researchers studying the case identified it as an example of trusted insider fraud that represented one of the most difficult categories of crime to prevent or detect. Unlike external attackers who must overcome security barriers, trusted insiders like Michael already possessed the access and credibility necessary to commit large-scale crimes while avoiding suspicion. The psychological profile developed by FBI behavioral analysts described Michael as a classic dark triad personality, someone who combined narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy in ways that enabled sophisticated criminal planning while maintaining the interpersonal charm necessary for professional success. This combination of traits was identified as particularly dangerous in service industries, where employee trustworthiness was essential to business operations. The profile suggested that Michael had likely planned his criminal activities for years before taking action, systematically studying casino operations and customer psychology while maintaining perfect professional behavior. This patient planning phase was identified as crucial to the scheme's success, allowing Michael to identify vulnerabilities and prepare countermeasures without attracting any attention from security or management. Years after Michael's disappearance, the FBI investigation remained officially active, but practically dormant. The initial intensity of international cooperation had gradually diminished as other cases demanded priority, and leads continued to prove fruitless. However, the case file remained flagged for immediate response if any new information emerged about Michael's location or activities. The lasting impact of Michael Torres extended far beyond the immediate financial loss. His betrayal of trust fundamentally changed how the casino industry approached employee screening, customer verification, and internal control procedures. The reforms implemented in response to his crime became standard practice throughout the global gaming industry. But perhaps most significantly, Michael Torres had proven that perfect crimes were possible in the modern era of electronic surveillance and international law enforcement cooperation. His success demonstrated that someone with sufficient patience, sophistication, and resources could still disappear completely while stealing millions, leaving investigators with nothing more than admiration for the criminal artistry they were powerless to punish. The question of whether Michael Torres achieved permanent freedom with his stolen $22 million or eventually faced consequences that the public would never learn about remained unanswered. Somewhere in the world, the man who had redefined what it meant to be the perfect host might still be serving himself the ultimate reward for a crime that changed an industry forever. The ultimate host. How Michael Torres served himself $22 million. Las Vegas. The Bellagio Casino, July 15, 2017. 8:47 p.m. Security cameras capture the golden hour of high roller hospitality. In a private VIP suite overlooking the Strip, champagne flutes catch the light from crystal chandeliers as they toast another successful business deal. Stacks of $100,000 chips create miniature skyscrapers across the felt-covered gaming table. The air thrums with the quiet confidence that only comes from having more money than most small countries. At the center of this opulent theater stands Michael Torres, impeccably dressed in a charcoal Armani suit that costs more than most people's monthly salary. His smile is practiced perfection, his handshake firm but not aggressive, his conversation peppered with just enough personal details to make each guest feel like his most important client. Casino hosts are hired to make whales feel untouchable. But Michael Torres had learned how to make himself rich instead. The security footage reveals what investigators would later recognize as criminal artistry in motion. While Michael appears to be providing exceptional VIP service, he's actually orchestrating the final act of a 2-year fraud scheme that would drain $22 million from the casino's credit systems. The guests raising those champagne glasses aren't celebrating business success. They're toasting the completion of one of the most sophisticated financial crimes in Las Vegas history. Behind the charm and professional excellence lies a scheme that exploited the very trust that makes high-roller hospitality possible. Michael had discovered that the system designed to pamper millionaires contained vulnerabilities that could be weaponized by someone with the right access, the right connections, and the complete absence of conscience. Before we dive into how a trusted casino host turned VIP service into a $22 million criminal enterprise, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a like if you're already fascinated by this incredible story. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with true crime fans around the world. Now let's meet the man who redefined what it means to take care of your guests. Michael Torres didn't stumble into his criminal career. He was groomed for it by an industry that rewards charm, discretion, and the ability to make wealthy people feel special. At 39, he represented the pinnacle of casino hospitality, a professional who'd spent 15 years perfecting the art of separating millionaires from their money while making them thank him for the privilege. Born and raised in Reno, Michael grew up in the shadow of Nevada's gaming industry, with the understanding that casinos represented the fastest path to financial success for someone without family wealth or elite education. His father dealt blackjack at local establishments, his mother worked hotel reservations, and Michael absorbed the service industry's fundamental lesson. Rich people will pay almost anything to feel important. Michael's career began at 18 as a floor runner at a downtown Reno casino, fetching drinks and running errands for dealers and supervisors. But even in this entry-level position, Michael demonstrated the interpersonal skills that would eventually make him one of Las Vegas's most successful VIP hosts. He remembered names, anticipated needs, and possessed the charismatic confidence that made people want to be around him. The progression to VIP hosting was natural but not inevitable. Thousands of casino workers possess basic people skills, but few can navigate the psychological complexities of managing relationships with individuals whose net worth exceeds the GDP of small nations. Michael had something extra, an intuitive understanding of wealth psychology that allowed him to make billionaires feel comfortable while extracting maximum value from their casino visits. By 2015, Michael had established himself as one of the Bellagio's premier VIP hosts, responsible for managing relationships with the casino's most valuable customers. Oil executives, tech entrepreneurs, pharmaceutical billionaires, and real estate moguls trusted Michael to arrange their Las Vegas experiences with the discretion and excellence that their status demanded. His official responsibilities included arranging accommodation in the casino's most exclusive suites, coordinating private jet transportation, organizing entertainment that ranged from celebrity appearances to private concerts, and most crucially, managing the credit arrangements that allowed high rollers to gamble with amounts that could fund small corporations. But Michael's true value lay in his ability to make wealthy customers feel that their business was appreciated rather than simply processed. He remembered birthdays, business anniversaries, and personal preferences with the precision of a database combined with the warmth of genuine friendship. Customers who might spend millions during a single weekend felt that Michael cared about them personally rather than just professionally. This reputation for exceptional service made Michael invaluable to the Bellagio's bottom line. Customers specifically requested his services, and his managed accounts generated tens of millions in annual revenue for the casino. From management's perspective, Michael Torres was exactly what a VIP host should be: profitable, reliable, and completely trustworthy. The trust would prove to be their most expensive mistake. The VIP credit system that Michael exploited was designed to provide maximum convenience for customers whose time was literally worth millions per hour. Wealthy gamblers didn't want to waste time with cash transactions or wire transfer delays when they were ready to place bets that could buy luxury homes. Instead, casinos offered credit arrangements known as markers, essentially sophisticated IOUs that allowed approved customers to access chips immediately while deferring actual payment until later. The system worked like a combination credit card and personal loan, with the casino advancing money based on verified bank account balances and credit histories. For customers, markers provided the ultimate in gambling convenience. A pharmaceutical executive celebrating FDA approval could walk into the Bellagio at midnight and have access to millions in chips within minutes, allowing him to capitalize on his celebratory mood without bureaucratic delays. For casinos, the marker system generated enormous profits while minimizing cash handling requirements. Instead of managing millions in physical currency, they processed electronic transactions that were faster, safer, and more easily tracked through internal accounting systems. But the convenience that made markers attractive to customers and casinos also created vulnerabilities that could be exploited by employees with the right access and criminal intent. VIP hosts like Michael had significant authority to approve preliminary credit arrangements, especially during busy periods when formal verification procedures might delay customer service. The system assumed that hosts would use this authority responsibly, extending credit only to verified customers with documented ability to repay their gambling debts. Background checks, financial verification, and ongoing monitoring were supposed to prevent fraud while maintaining the speed and convenience that high rollers demanded. Michael discovered that reality was more flexible than policy suggested. During peak periods, major sporting events, holidays, or celebrity appearances, the volume of VIP activity could overwhelm formal verification procedures. Hosts were expected to use their judgment to approve temporary credit arrangements that would be formally processed later. This gap between policy and practice created opportunities for someone with Michael's access and understanding of casino operations. If he could create convincing fake customer profiles with appropriate documentation, he could potentially access the marker system for his own benefit while appearing to provide legitimate customer service. The realization that he could steal millions while looking like the perfect employee was both exciting and terrifying. Michael understood that executing such a scheme would require extraordinary preparation, significant criminal accomplices, and the complete betrayal of the trust that his employers and customers had placed in him. But the potential rewards were too substantial to ignore. Michael Torres learned crime by watching, not acting. As a VIP host, he gained inside access to credit systems, background checks, and fraud controls. He saw that casinos relied on documents that looked real rather than on foolproof verification, and that anti-fraud efforts targeted cheating players, not trusted employees. He noticed that international markers gave him even more leeway. Offshore accounts and complex financial structures often delayed verification until after credit had already been granted. His revelation came in 2015 when a tech billionaire received a $2 million weekend marker before the bank confirmed his funds. For several days, that credit existed on trust alone. Michael realized that with the right forged identities, he could replicate the same process for himself. Michael needed allies. His first recruit was David Chen, a disgraced Bellagio supervisor with debts and insider knowledge of marker verification. David knew exactly what documents would be scrutinized and how easily forged statements and phone verifications could pass. Next came Maria Santos, a master forger running a high-tech workshop in North Las Vegas. For $50,000 to $70,000 per identity, she created passports, bank records, and corporate paperwork, convincing enough to pass initial checks. Finally, Michael leveraged his host contacts to build a global laundering pipeline. Panama transfer services, Macau currency exchanges, and bankers in the Caymans, Switzerland, and Singapore. Shell companies and nominee directors made funds untraceable. By late 2015, he had everything: fake identities, accomplices, and offshore infrastructure. All he needed was patience. In December 2015, he launched Alexander Petrov, a Russian developer with Swiss bank statements and a Mayfair office front. David Chen played the role, trained in Russian business culture and armed with Maria's forgeries. Alexander requested a $2 million marker, passed preliminary checks, and gambled conservatively to appear credible. Over the weekend, he converted chips into wire transfers, netting $900,000 laundered through Panama before inconsistencies surfaced Monday. By then, Alexander was gone. Casino staff wrote it off as a collection issue, unaware they'd been conned. The test proved the scheme worked. The documents held, the acting was convincing, and the money moved. Michael had his proof of concept. Over the next 18 months, Michael built a rotation of high-roller personas: Viktor Kozlov, a Ukrainian steel magnate; James Morrison, a pharmaceutical executive; and Roberto Silva, a Brazilian mining heir. Each identity came with full histories, websites, and banking trails, detailed enough to survive casual scrutiny. What began as a $900,000 test evolved into a system capable of extracting tens of millions, enough to fund Michael's eventual disappearance. Michael's management of these characters demonstrated criminal sophistication that went far beyond opportunistic theft. He scheduled their visits to avoid overlap, maintained detailed records of their supposed gambling preferences and personal interests, and arranged appropriate hospitality that matched their claimed business backgrounds and cultural origins. The financial returns were substantial. Each fake customer generated between $1 and $3 million in stolen funds per visit, with the money converted through international wire transfers that made recovery virtually impossible even if the fraud was eventually detected. But Michael's greatest achievement was maintaining operational security while scaling his criminal activities. The fake high rollers appeared to be exactly what they claimed: wealthy international customers who occasionally visited Las Vegas for recreation and relaxation. Their gambling patterns, spending habits, and social interactions were indistinguishable from those of legitimate VIP customers. By July 2017, Michael Torres had stolen roughly $18 million through the VIP marker system and felt untouchable. That summer, he attempted his boldest fraud yet, fabricating 3 international high rollers to drain $22 million in a single weekend. He staged the Global Infrastructure Investment Summit, complete with fake websites, attendee lists, and social media to justify the sudden arrival of 3 wealthy businessmen: Victor Kozlov, James Morrison, and Roberto Silva. Each had detailed backstories and forged documents supporting multi-million-dollar credit lines. The accomplices played their roles flawlessly, gambling just enough to appear authentic while rapidly converting markers into wire transfers. By Sunday, $22 million was routed to offshore accounts in Panama, Singapore, and the Cayman Islands. Their departures were staggered to avoid suspicion, leaving Michael confident he'd executed the perfect crime. But Monday's reconciliation flagged irregularities. Credit extensions far exceeded norms, and verification calls exposed that the banks and companies backing the clients didn't exist. Security footage tied every fake customer directly to Michael, who had personally arranged their credit and gaming. The Bellagio realized its star host had betrayed them on a staggering scale. When investigators moved in, Michael was already gone. His condo was emptied with bills paid, and months of preparation showed: assets liquidated, identities forged, and research into countries with weak extradition. Phone and computer records revealed offshore accounts, rentals abroad, and plans for permanent reinvention. The FBI launched a global search, probing Panama, Europe, and Asian gaming hubs, but found no trace. The chilling possibility emerged: Michael might never have left the U.S., living under a fabricated identity while investigators scoured the world. Michael Torres achieved something unprecedented in casino crime: a theft operation that exploited personal trust and professional competence rather than technical vulnerabilities or systematic weaknesses. His success demonstrated that the most dangerous criminals often appear to be model employees who exceed expectations while secretly betraying every principle their positions represent. Unlike hackers who exploit computer systems or cheaters who manipulate games, Michael used interpersonal skills and professional reputation to access millions while maintaining the appearance of exceptional, legitimate service. His criminal methodology was essentially an extreme version of the relationship management that made him valuable as a VIP host. His invisibility as a trusted employee provided perfect cover for criminal operations that generated millions, while leaving virtually no physical evidence. The casino industry's focus on customer fraud created blind spots that Michael exploited with precision that professional criminals might envy. Whether Michael Torres lives free with his stolen millions somewhere beyond the reach of international law enforcement, or met a different fate after disappearing into the criminal underground, he accomplished something that fundamentally changed how the gaming industry approaches employee trust and internal security. He proved that perfect crimes might not require perfect technology or sophisticated criminal networks. Sometimes they just require perfect understanding of human psychology and the patience to exploit trust systematically over time. Michael Torres played the role of a perfect host until the casino realized he'd been hosting himself to their money. With $22 million gone and no meaningful leads after 6 years of international investigation, the question remains: did Michael Torres gamble everything on freedom and win? Or is he still out there somewhere, cashing in chips under a name that nobody knows?